Hello and welcome again to another Manfred Mentors episode. Today we're going to deal with the pain that are security updates. You'll see what we're going to work on today in a second. Should be interesting and a fun session. So what I'm going to work on is the impact of recent security issues that were filed as CVEs and available on the blog post of the React website on Trino. As you know, I'm a Trino maintainer and I help with all sorts of things. And hopefully you can learn something again today from me. And if you want to support my efforts, you can find information on github.com/simplyagility here, a sponsor and support Manfred. And I'm tracking all my work in here in my sort of like project tracker, and this is what we're working on today. So React security issue investigation and fix. How does this came apart? Well, I work at ChainGuard, so I'm sort of like up to date on what's going on in the security world, tried a bit, but also on the Trino Slack. Dane, one of the main drivers in the Trino project and founders of the Trino project, pinged us, maintainers, if we know anything about this recent security issues. And I already knew a bit about it, and I thought, well, I might as well see what we can do in the Trino side about this here late at night now. So let's get right into it. So what's going on here? So there's this React blog post, and they had a critical security vulnerability in the React server components filed. And then just today, another one was filed about a denial service and source code exposure in the React server components. So how could this react Trino? Well, we don't know. So we have to look into it. So that's what we're going to do. So let's read this or check out this security issues for a little bit first. So what you see here is it was filed as a CVE so-and-so number, rate security severity issue 10. That's pretty damn bad. So we want to fix that if it affects us. And even if it doesn't affect us, sometimes it's good to upgrade to the versions with the fixes, because a lot of those security scanners that you have out there that make people nervous by reporting that some CVE affects you, even if it doesn't necessarily affect you, it's just you might have the component and that might expose something. So it's like often a false alert, but it is an alert, and people want to like feel assured that it doesn't affect them. So often it's good hygiene to upgrade and do these things anyway. So that's what I'm going to try and see what's happening. You see here these three React server DOM parcel and DOM turbo pack components are the dependencies that, or like the packages that were affected, and they were affected in these versions. And the introduced fixes are in these versions. So that's essentially what we have to check out. If any of this stuff happens to be like available or used or whatever in Trino. And so that's the first issue. Second issue, and then there's also like downstream here more stuff like how could it affect you if you're on Next.js, because there are transitive dependencies, React router. So you should upgrade all those potentially, Expo, Redwood. So this could get pretty painful, pretty big. So we'll just see where we're at. And we will do what we can today. If we can't fix it all up today, then we'll have to do a follow-up episode or see what's comes up with the discussion on any of the pull requests I'll create and how things pan out. But that's how it is. This is always work. So that's the first one. And there is two. So go back to the blog here, look at the second one. So we just looked at this critical one. This was a 10 severability. Now this new one that was just filed today, denial of service, high severity, source code exposure, medium severity. So score of 7.5 and 5.3, so not as bad, but still something you want to avoid if you can. And while we're at it, we might as well deal with it all, right? And if you look here, this is the same component, so the same culprits, and then here's the fixed versions for that stuff. So these are the versions where it is where it's present. You see here of these, and then fixes were backported 2 versions of these. So we essentially want to upgrade to these versions if we can, if any of these components are even used. Who knows, right? So that's the next question. And again, here we have more questions about React Native and so on. Now, what is React even? React, if you look at the website here, you can see here, lets you build user interfaces. So it's a web, it's a framework for web and native user interfaces. So that is already going to help us because, and it's obviously JavaScript, right? / TypeScript usage where that's possible. So we have to know in the Trino community or in the Trino open source project what could even be affected. And the way we can find out about that is by kind of knowing and having been in the project for a while mostly, and that's luckily something that is the case for me. So things I can think of is in Trino itself, there's the UI, the main UI, which is very old and bad, kind of like not as much maintained as we would like it to be. So if you're a JavaScript developer and want to help us, we would love to have you help us. But we don't want you to help us on the old legacy UI because luckily in Trino, we also have a preview UI that Peter has been working on, and that's amazing, much nicer, more modern, and is close to feature complete. But again, we might have to update that one. So there's at least those 2 UIs. Trino Gateway is the project that I'm leading quite a bit. It's like a load balancer and router in front of multiple Trino clusters. Also has a UI, so that's another candidate where it could be. Trino-js-client is the Trino JavaScript client. That theoretically should not be affected because it's a client library in order to talk to Trino from some JavaScript application. So the JS client could be used in some other thing, but it's probably not having React itself in it because, well, there's no UI. So hopefully it's not used in there, but we don't know either. So we'll have to check. Another component that does use Java / TypeScript is grafana-trino. So we might have to look at that one. And then the last one that I can think of that also uses a bunch of JavaScript, I mean, apart from the website, but that's kind of like, it's not a React-based website. It's a static HTML website based on Jekyll. So that's not affected. I know that for sure. But the only other one is the query UI. So the new query UI, the Trino query UI, that could also use React. So let's go and get ready to deal with the pain of all of these guys together, or well, gals and all projects. So one step at a time. So let's look at Trino first. So I'm gonna flip over to my Visual Studio Code here. I have Trino here. Directory tree, you see here, Trino source code core. Trino web UI is where the source code for the web UI is. Because if you look here, this is a Maven project, and then in main resources is the 2 JavaScript-based projects that provide the functionality for the main web app and for the legacy, and for the new preview UI. So let's look at the old one first. The old one is here. I can fire that up too, but that's something we'll do another time. Not that interesting today. What we want to find out is here, what is even used. So we go dive down in this directory structure. You see in the source directory here is the source code of the web app. And here package.json is the package and information from the JavaScript string. You also see that there's a yarn log file. And if you look in the package.json file and we do a search for React, as I've done here already, you see this is like a much older version of React. So it's a much older version of React. And importantly, The security issue says that specific, oh, where did it go here? That specifically all these versions are affected. So the older versions are not affected. That might be because these components didn't even exist back then. I have no idea, but that's okay. I don't have to really worry about it too much. So for all intents and purposes, I'm going to assume I don't have to deal with anything of this because this React is too old and there's no functionality that's exposed and used by this. Is there other security issues? Yeah, but that's not the problem. Maybe, I don't know. I'm guessing maybe, potentially. But also, I honestly think probably not, given how old and like raw this UI is. If you want to play with it, you can find out. And either way, in the next hopefully months, we're going to get rid of it and replace it with the new one. So let's say number one, we dealt with the old legacy UI. Whew, one done, more to go. Web app preview. So the preview web app is more modern. It is using vid and npm. So in the README here, you can see we can do npm install theoretically in here to get new dependencies and then run def, all that kind of stuff. And the info is in the package.json file. And if we look here, sure enough, React is in use. And it is in use 19.1.1. So that is one of the versions that is affected. So 19.1.1. It's not affected in the sense that here, if you look at this, and specifically also in the log file, if you look at the log file, so the package JSON file only details the dependencies that are needed for different things, right? Like for runtime here dependencies, and then for development dependencies, and then like this override. The log file, but those are the ones that are specified. And then those have transitive dependencies that then also get pulled in, and the specifics of the versions that are being used then comes up in the npm log file. And the log file will have the version that's actually resolved, which means this is a version that I'm specifying, or like specifically here. But with this, it says anything that's higher and compatible. So it could go higher in the package log file if I update it, and if I run an npm install or npm update. To keep this relatively contained, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this minimal. So I should upgrade these React components all to 19.2.3 to get the latest, but then that might break things. Luckily, they've done a back port, so 19.1.4 is what I'm going to be going for. So let's do prepare for development of this. So what we're going to do is git s, git checkout branch. So this is my local checkout of this whole thing. And if you look here, there's nothing changed yet. So git checkout branch, preview, React, fix, oh well, fizz, whatever, doesn't really matter. It's just a branch name. So this is my new branch. And now we can go and start mucking around. So what we're going to do is we are going to go React, even though, like, if you look at these components, it doesn't look like these are actually used, right? Like, at least not directly. Transitively, they might be used, but to be on the safe side, we will update this one, this one. Yeah, so we'll update those two. And the rest we'll leave as it stands, and then we'll see what npm install, npm run build. So we can go npm package if you want to. So we can go npm package. Oops, sorry. Actually, we can just go and use the no npm. Did I save this file? Let's go think for a sec. Yeah, saved. and npm install. And you see it resolved those. It also did a whole bunch of update on the log files. It updated React DOM to that. So that's interesting that it get that. It must think that it's compatible. And we're upgrading those here in the component file. So let's do this for a second. Git commit update React. We can later add more commits and like more commit messages if you want to. I don't really like to add that I'm doing this to resolve a security issue, because I'm not really resolving a security issue. Like the components are just being updated so that any false warnings don't show up. So I'm really just updating React. So I'm just using this, and I'm gonna push this and create a pull request for that. This actually is only the start of this whole work, right? Like I'm gonna have to add more info here. So I'm gonna just go work in progress. And I'm hoping I can keep it as not user visible. So I can get rid of this. And I'll add more context and links to the sponsor ticket and all that kind of stuff later. So I'm gonna put this here, because what I'm gonna do is I just push this in here, keep it parked while this is running its checks and builds. I can do this work, let that sit here, and I can do more investigation and come back. I can also build it locally and find out more. But for now, I think we're good with this. So let's assume we updated this, and we will come back later to run the build, fire up the UI and all that kind of stuff to test it in terms of like actually showing up as UI. But like theoretically, at least from an issue perspective here, we got that cleared up. So let's say this is all right for now, and go to the next one. The next one I mentioned we want to check out is probably let's look at the JS client. So the Trino-JS client, as I mentioned, is a JavaScript client. I also have that here, I think. So yeah, JS client. Let's just look if we have a new fresh copy. Pull upstream main. Okay, push. So we are good. This is the latest code base from the client. Again, so here the JS client here. Unfortunately, again, different build tool. This is Yarn here. And again, the configuration for Yarn is in terms of the packages in a package JSON file. And if you look here, there's our info, Yarn dist, our dev dependencies are all those, but those are all development. The runtime dependencies only Axios. So nothing about Yarn, also nothing about React. So we can basically forget about this. This is the only dependency. And we can basically declare the JS client to not be an issue in terms of the upgrade and addressing the React issue, which arguably, well, that's kind of to be expected given that it's not a UI and React is a UI framework. But, you know, like these things, you always better off checking. So the next one, and I see I don't have a local clone of this, is Grafana. So I guess we can just browse in the GitHub repository here and see if we find anything here. So the Grafana Trino client data source is also a JavaScript written component, I think, or has a bunch of JavaScript in it anyway. Yep, from what I understand. Yeah, mostly this work is mostly done by Jan. So that's really awesome. And you see here there's a Go mod file. So it must be like a combination of Go and and JavaScript maybe. I just know that there's some JavaScript involved because I heard Jan talk about that. So, and fair enough, there is a package JSON file. So we can look at that, all the information here. Dev dependencies is a bunch of Grafana stuff and React. But it's only a dev dependency, and so that means it doesn't matter, and it's older than the 19 something versions that are affected. So again, we can declare win on that. Ultimately, at some stage, you probably want to update all this, but there's always more work to be done in open source projects and not enough people to do the work. So for now, this is where it's gonna be. So we can declare winning on the security potential issue of this, and can say, well, the Grafana plugin is also not affected. So that's good. So the last one that we were thinking of was Trino Gateway. So Trino Gateway, I think I have the code base here as well, somewhere. Guess I should go to a different directory, /Trino Gateway. This is the release notes PR that we created recently. So let's go git checkout main, git checkout, git pull, upstream, main. I'm not sure if anything merged. Oh yeah, one more PR got merged recently. Git push. So we can just look in the main branch. We're up to date, and if necessary, we can create a branch. So the Trino Gateway project here, again, mostly written in Java, but it has a web app UI that is much more modern. And it is also built with a JavaScript packaging tool. Just to have fun and mix it up, it's built with a different build tool. Again, this is built with pnpm. So we literally have all of them with npm, pnpm, and yarn all being used in Trino. Not ideal, but historically that's how things come to be. Sometimes you don't have a choice about it. Luckily, I've done work with all of them for the chain guard libraries for JavaScript, so I'm not a noob in either of them. I'm definitely not a pro in any of them either, by the way, but that's a different story. I mean, I always say I know enough to be dangerous. So this is the dependencies for the web app, and we are in kind of good situation again. We're in a bad situation because these components are old, but we're in a good position because the security issues affect a newer version. So again, we can kind of declare that we don't need to worry about this. In this case, for now, will we have to worry about it in the future? Probably not directly, because we're going to upgrade to something that's even newer, like the latest, hopefully, at some stage soon. And then again, that's not a problem. Specifically, this one is going to be a tricky bit anyway, because what we want to do here, as you can see here, this is using semi-UI. We are standardizing on MUI, so the material UI, so that the query UI and this and the Trino UI can all share the component of the query UI. And that means we want to be on one framework, which means we're going to try to get this over. Again, if someone knows JavaScript a lot and can help us with that, that would be great. For now, however, for today, we can declare this a non-issue and leave it alone as well. So the last one that we said we're going to have to look at is the trino-query-ui itself. That's our new component. We are working towards getting this published, by the way. It's not really edited yet, but if I go and show you this here, GitHub Trino, actually, trino-query-ui. We just got a first release out successfully recently. And I have a bunch of pull requests open for this. We just switched it to material UI, so now it can be used in the preview UI, which is what Peter is working on here. If you see, this is what it kind of looks like. You can browse, you can type your queries. You can see the results. You can see them being processed while it's being run on the Trino cluster across the workers and stuff. It's really great. There is a demo GIF as well that you can watch here that shows you a bit more in action. This is when in the dark theme in the old version before we switched to Material UI, but it shows some of the functionality quite nicely. But this is not what we're here for. Can talk about this some other time. What we want to know is what this is using. And I do have a pull request up for this to update the locked dependencies already. And this pull request changed the package log file. And that's a big change. But we can just either update that one, or we can look what generally comes up. So let's look at this on my local thing for now. So if I look at this here, this is the simply the update branch. So let's go over to cd /trino-query-ui, git branch, git checkout, update. And you see here, there's another PR that I worked on to get to Node.js 24 and so on, right? So anyway, let's get to this branch and go over to the query UI project, folder precise, package JSON. Here we go. And you see here peer dependencies. So it does talk about React and stuff coming in, but it comes in from this emotion and the Monaco editor React. This might be problematic. We might have to update this more, but for starters, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the peer dependencies to higher, and hopefully that can already address some of it. So let's see if I go to 19.4, I think it was 19.1.4. Let's go back to the blog post. 19.1.4, yeah, 19.1.4. Also, if we look at the package log file and look for React, you see, like we can go through here, but like we can even look for React dash server. Like you see, if I do go search for React dash server, none of these components show up. So we are not affected either. But again, as I mentioned, just to be on the safe side, it might be good to update this. So git s, oh, sorry, should save this file as well. Git s, git diff. So here's the update. So if I go p-npm, also I have to go precise, and oh, sorry, this one is using actually I can go here. You see here in the README it says npm, so we can go npm run build. I could do that, or I can go into my update. So I can go npm run, or let's do npm install first. npm run build. And theoretically, with a bit of luck, this will all pass. And in the meantime, I can go git s. And you see here the package JSON enter is now also updated, and the log file. So I can go git s, git log shows me that this is the one that I already wanted as a commit to update the dependency, to adjust the dependencies to this Monaco editor. There was some like weird duplication, and I need to change it and I clean it up as one. But what I actually want to do is I want to do the update locked dependencies here. I want to use this commit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and go git add dot git commit minus fix up. We fix up this commit. So basically what we're saying is like, actually the changes that we have now, add them to this commit. That's what I'm doing here. So now I have a fix up commit. So if I go git log now, you see there's like the logged one, that one, and then a new commit that says it's a fix up commit for that one, and just by the title, and there's like a reference. What I can do is now I can go and rebase. So git. Okay, well, the git history is not long enough. I have this alias, so I got git rebase minus I for interactive head minus like, so like let's say the latest 6 commits. And you see here now, because I have fix up and I have rebase interactive, now this was here as fix up. So this is already what I want. So I just write this down, commit it, and now I go git log. And you see now I only have 2 commits. Can't tell so easily from this, but if I go git push minus F, oops. Now I push this. Now if I go back to the commit or the pull request that we filed earlier, here the update log dependencies, there's 2 commits. You see still 2 commits. If I look at the first commit, it is package and package JSON and package log file. And here's my JSON log file. And then here is also my update log dependencies. So I can sort of let that run. And I think the build already ran over here. Yeah, so it built and it seems to be okay, right? I would have to fire this up, which I can run. I guess I could do that quickly if I wanted to. Let's see. Maybe we'll do that another time. Should be a fun exercise anyway, just to see it in action. But essentially, we can say that in the trino-query-ui, it wasn't affected because it was peer dependencies, and those specific ones, well, the specific packages that were having the security issue weren't there. But I also now updated to update the package JSON file. This commit will need a review from other maintainers, then it can get merged, and I will do some testing. So that's that one. The updating React on Trino itself is still running, so that will require some more testing. But as you saw here, I just updated those React dependencies, and it updated the log file as well. And in terms of the commit message, I think this is probably okay. Maybe I'll update the commit messages or just write some more information here in the PR. But in overall, we can basically say that luckily nothing was really affected because none of the components that were affected are used in any of the Trino projects things. But cleanup still has to be done. I just touched the surface here of the work that's necessary because, well, ultimately, in order to address them completely, I have to fire up the different UIs where I changed things, and then I have to see that everything is still good. The builds test some things, but like you at least need to do a spot check after that, which I gonna do here ultimately after this build passed. And maybe in another episode, we'll see how that goes. And then also those pull requests need to be reviewed by others and agreed upon and merged. So that's going to take a little bit, but that's already pretty good. So as you can see, there is quite a bit of work involved in just updating 1 or 2 components. Trino uses hundreds of components, is mostly a Java project, which doesn't have as many security things to going on overall in a critical fashion. But because there's so many and new versions are basically where we want to be, there's still a lot of work involved. Mateusz is doing a lot of that, and I'm helping where I can as well. It's like the usual upgrade paths. But as you can see, these 2 security issues and CVEs that were filed do not affect Trino, and we are in a good situation, and we'll hopefully upgrade all our components ultimately soon as well. All right. All right, everyone. I think that's it for tonight. It's getting real late here, and there's other things to be acted on as well. And ultimately, I'll get another episode going. Stay tuned. I have some cool news about Trino Community Broadcast episode coming up in January. And also, I'm going to be doing some more Manfred mentors on various hackery. Definitely going to show you the query UI. I want to get those PRs that I have up and running, merged, and we're going to cut another release, and then we'll see how we can get this into the Trino UI itself. That should be super exciting to be able to fire up Trino and have a query editor right there as part of the install. I'm really looking forward to that, working with Peter and Mateo and others on that. And maybe you. It would be awesome to have you join us. Find us on Slack. You know, you find me on Slack all the time. You can also find me on here on YouTube and other places. Reach out. I'm not hiding anywhere. As you can see here, also the Simply Agility account and my Simply Agility website. You can find information a little bit there. And please do sponsor me so I can keep this going and maybe get rid of some of those costs for StreamYard and other services. But ultimately, I'm having fun, and I'd love for you to mostly watch, learn along, and maybe also even let me know what else I should do. All right. And that's it now for today. I'll see you next time.